All right, guys, today what we're going to be doing is we are literally going to be trying to get rid of nasty little fractions. Fractions are what you guys do not like. Your goal today is whenever you see a fraction or a decimal in a problem is to eliminate all the fractions and decimals in the parentheses to make the equation look pretty. That's your goal. No fractions, no decimals, no parentheses. That's all you have to do today. Okay? So how do we go about doing that? The first step is to locate the fractions. Once you locate the fractions, you then are going to say, okay, well, where are the fractions? If the fractions are inside the parentheses, you're going to get them out of the parentheses. If they're not inside the parentheses, you then are going to go to step 2, and you are going to find the LCM of the denominator. Okay, the LCM is called the LCD whenever we're dealing with the denominator. Okay, which is exactly what we did previously. Then we're going to multiply each term and every term on each side by the LCD. The point of this is it cancels out the denominator and eliminates the fraction. That is our goal today, okay? So today, what I need your brain to get is I want to eliminate fractions, decimals, and parentheses. That is what our goal is, okay? So here we go. Example 1. First thing, step 1, look for your fractions. Well, I have fractions in the first term. The second term is just a 3, and it equals a last term, which is a fraction. So the very first thing you're going to do is you're going to identify your fractions. Right there they are. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, well, what is my LCD, also known as your least common multiple, between 5 and 2? So if I do what we did last time, 5, 10, 15, what is the first multiplication table between 2 and 5? Does 2 go into 5? No. Does 2 go into 10? Yes. So that means 10 is my LCD. So we are going to put brackets around this entire equation, and we are going to multiply by 10. Now, if you recall, whenever we did the multiplication of fractions, we always look diagonally and cross-reduce. So what we're going to do is we're going to distribute this 10 into the 5x divided by 2. So that means we are going to simplify this and this first, the 2 and the 10. So 10 divided by 2 is going to give you a 5. Then we are going to drop down this numerator. Plus, okay, the next term is just a whole number. So you would just use the distributive property and multiply those together to give you 30. The next term, 10 divided by 5, is going to be 2. And just like before, we're going to drop down the 7 by multiplication. So our goal today is to eliminate all fractions, decimals, and parentheses. Do you see parentheses here? Yes. So 5 times 5 is 25x. Drop down the 30 is equal to 2 times 7, which is 14. What we did here is we changed the fraction of 5x over 2 plus 3 equals 7 over 5, this equation, and we're telling you that it is equivalent to this equation of 25x plus 30 equals 14. It's kind of like waking up in the morning versus what you look like whenever you come to school in the morning. You're the same person, those equations are exactly the same, but they cosmetically have been altered so our brain can easily calculate things with them without frustration, okay? So let's keep going. Next, find your fractions. My fractions are 4 and a 6x. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the least common multiple between 4 and 6. So what is the first multiplication table? So I'm going to do 6, 12, 18, 24. Does 4 go into 6? No. Does 4 go into 12? Yes. So 12 is my LCD, but guess what? I cannot forget about this lovely x. That x has to be a part of my LCD. Okay? So now we're going to multiply this whole thing by 12x. So when I do that, I'm going to, if it's a fraction, I'm going to do the division first. So what is 12x divided by 4? Well, 12 divided by 4 is going to be a 3, and I'm going to tack on the x, and I'm going to drop down the entire numerator of that fraction. go to the second term. The second term, I'm going to take 12x and divide it by 6x. 12x divided by 6x is a 2. The x's cancel out, and I drop down the given numerator of a 2. Now I go to the last term, and that is not a fraction. It is a whole number, so I simply multiply those together. So we see some parentheses here, so we need to go ahead and deal with those parentheses. So I'm going to take 3x times 7 to give me 21x, and I drop down the x minus 3. 2 times 2 is going to be 4, and then 8 times 12 is going to be 96x. I still see parentheses though, don't I? So since I still see parentheses, I'm going to distribute. 21, x times x is x squared. 21 times 3 is going to give me a minus 63x plus 4 is equal to 96x. Now here's my question for you. Do we have any fractions? No, we do not. Do we have any decimals? No, we do not. Do we have any parentheses? No, we do not. So today, all we're doing is making this look pretty. You don't have to combine like terms. You don't have to do anything else. I just want you to get comfortable with getting rid of fractions, decimals, and parentheses. So let's keep going. Now, what happens whenever I have a decimal? When you're given decimals in a problem, you can change them all to fractions using the place value system. You can do this. This is the tenths, the hundredths, the thousandths, which is why it's 625 over 1,000, which reduces down to 5/8. This requires a lot of thinking. Because it requires a lot of thinking and thought, what I like to do is to simply tell you to move the terms over 1, 2, 3 units on every term. What do I mean by that? Well, here we go. You are going to count the number of place values. And this one right here, this has 2 place values, meaning 1, 2. Over here, this one has 1, 2. And then in the last one, it has a 1. So what is the highest number of decimal places that we have there? 2. So what we are going to do is we're going to simply move the decimal to the right. Two units. Okay, so what this means is now this is going to be 1, 2. That's going to be a 25 parenthesis x minus 3. You do not go inside the parentheses because that is an entire whole term there. Minus 1, 2, 75x equals 1, 2, 50, not 5. Okay? So simply multiply 25x, 3/4 is 75, minus 75x equals 50. Do you have any fractions? No. Do you have any decimals? No. Do you have any parentheses? No. That's as far as you have to go today. Let's do it again. Same exact concept. So this term right here, how many decimal places are there? 3. This term right here, how many decimal places are there? 1. This term right here, how many decimal places? 2. So we are going to pick the highest. And we are simply going to move this unit over 3 times to give me 125x. Plus, now we're going to move this 3 times. 1, and then I have to tack on 2 zeros to give me the 2 other place values. And drop down the x plus 2. Do not do anything in the parentheses because that whole unit, this whole thing is a unit. Equals, and now we're going to move this over 3 units, and I have to tack on a 0 to give me 160. So, do I have any fractions? No. Do I have any decimals? No. But do I have parentheses still? Yes, I do. So that's going to give me 400x plus 800 is equal to 160. No fractions, no decimals, no parentheses. Done. Okay? Let's keep going. What happens when the fraction that we have in our problem is inside the parenthesis? Everything that we've done so far, the fraction has been on the outside of the parenthesis. Well, when the fraction is on the inside of the parenthesis, you have to distribute and multiply your fractions together. So that means we're going to go ahead and distribute this to x, then put this over 1, multiply the tops together, and multiply the bottoms together. And then you're going to repeat the process like we did previously. So now we're going to look at our denominators, and we're going to say, what is the first multiplication table that is in common between 5 and 7? 7 times 1 is 7, times 2 is 14, times 3 is 21, times 4 is 28, times 5 is going to be 35. And immediately your brain should say, okay, well 35 is the winner. So that means I'm going to multiply this entire thing by 35. Now, do your numbers get bigger whenever you do this? Yes, your numbers do get larger. However, you're dealing with whole numbers rather than fractions, and your brain is able to handle it a lot easier. So if you need to grab a calculator, by all means, please do, to make sure that you are doing your multiplication correctly. So now we're going to go ahead and distribute this in. 35 times 2x, I multiply those because it is not a fraction. Gives me 70x. Go to the next one. This is a fraction, so I'm going to take 35 and divide it by 5, which gives me a 7, and I drop down the 6 from the numerator. Go to the last term across the equal sign. I take 35 divided by 7, which gives me a 5, and I drop down the 4. So we're almost there. I have no fractions and I have no decimals, but I do have parentheses. So I have 70x minus 42 is equal to 20. So now you have no fractions, you have no decimals, and you have no parentheses, so you are done. Next, let's do it again. Same exact concept. My fraction is inside the parentheses, so I'm going to distribute. I have a 2 over 5x minus 2 times 3 is 6, 5 times 7 is 35, minus 5/8 x equals 3. Okay, now this is going to be a little bit nasty, and the reason why this is a little bit nasty is because 35 is our, oopsie, definitely did not mean to do that. 35 is our largest number up there. So we need to find factors of 35 that are divisible by 8. Well, the best thing that I can do there is to tell you to take 35 times 8, and that gives you 280. It may not be the smallest, but we do know that 35 times 8 is 240, or 280, sorry. And we know that 35 is divisible by 5, and we know that the 280 is divisible by 8. So that's the number we're going to use. It may be the smallest, or it may not be. The point is to not spend a lot of time on this, right? So using your calculator, you are going to go ahead and take 280 and divide it by 5. 280 divided by 5 is going to be 56. And then I drop down the 2x. Go to the next term. 280 divided by 35. Well, we know that. That's 8. So that's going to be minus an 8 and drop down the numerator, which is 6. Equals, or it should be the next term. 280 divided by 8 is going to give you the 35. We know that from that multiplication table up there. And drop down the 5x is equal to 280 times 3 is going to give you 840. So I have no fractions, I have no decimals, so now all I'm going to do is I am going to multiply these together. So 56 times 2 is 112x. 8 times 6 is going to be 48. 35 times 5 is going to be 175. X. Then you're going to have is equal to 840. And that has no fractions, it has no decimals, and it has no parentheses. Do we understand what I did there? Okay? I'm going to give you 2 more examples here, and then I'll be done. So each one of these is unique. So your LCD is the 2 times the x times the 2x minus 3. That is what we're going to multiply this whole fraction by. So when I distribute that, what cancels out are just the outside x's. So I drop down what is left. That means the 2 and the x minus 3 are left, and that's what does not cancel out. And then I drop down the numerator. Plus, go to the second fraction. Ooh, this should have been a 2x, guys. I did not write that correctly. There should be a 2 there. And there. Go to the second fraction, and what cancels out is the 2x minus 3. So then I'm going to have left the 2x, and then I drop down the numerator, which is the 2, equals, and go to the third one. The 2's cancel out this time, so I drop down the x and the 2x minus 3, and then I tack on the 5x. So now I'm going to multiply this number and this number together to give me a 2. And 2x times 2 is going to be 4x. And then I'm going to do the same thing what I did over here. I'm going to multiply the 5x and the x together to give you a 5x squared and a 2x minus 3. Then I'm going to distribute 4x minus 12 plus 4x equals 10x cubed minus 15x squared. Done. That was super duper hard. Last one. This might look very similar to what you have on your homework paper, so everybody take a gander at it. Okay. Go ahead and distribute, because we have a fraction inside the parentheses. So I drop everything down. Negative times a negative is a positive 10. A negative times a negative is a positive. Put the 2 over 1. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 4 is 4. And that's an x is equal to 5 over 8x. Now, if you can reduce a fraction, you always want to do that first. Meaning, this fraction right here of 4 over 2 should be reduced. So 15 over 7x plus 10. 6 divided by 2 is a 3. 4 divided by 2 is a 2. That looked like an S, sorry. Now notice that x is in the bottom, so we have to make sure we acknowledge that. So my denominators are 2, 7, and 8. So you have to kind of ask yourself, 7 is the tricky number here. If it's divisible by 8, it's divisible by 2. Has to be. But 7 is going to be your thing that's going to be a big, big issue. So if you look at your 8, 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16, times 3 is 24, times 4 is 32, times 5 is 40, times 6 is 48, and times 7 is 56. Okay? 7 does not go to any of those numbers except for 56. And that definitely looks like an 86. Okay, so that means we're going to use the 56, but it's not just 56, it is going to be 56x. So again, use that calculator again, guys. So 56 divided by 7 we know to be an 8. Tack on the x and drop down the 15x. Plus This is not a fraction, so you multiply instead of dividing, so that's going to be 560x. Go to the next term. 56 divided by 2 is going to give you 28. Tack on that x and drop down the 3x is equal to. Now 56x divided by 8x is going to give you a 7 and then drop down the 5. So 8 times 15 is going to be 120. X times x is x squared plus 560x plus 28 times 3 is going to give you an 84. X times x is x squared, and 7 times 5 is 35. No fractions, no decimals, and no parentheses. Tonight's homework, your goal is to do 1-4 worksheet 2, eliminating fractions and decimals. Do not solve the equations. Only eliminate the fraction and make it look pretty. No parentheses, no fractions and decimals. Okay?